Hello, everyone. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio Network, a subsidiary of Global Media Network, LLC. Our mantra is to educate, enlighten, and entertain. The views of the guest may not represent those of the host or the station. Folks, I have with me today another exceptional guest. My guest today is Scott Skikes. He is author and writer of several books, but today he's going to talk about Eyes of Blue, which is part of a science fiction adventure series for young adults. And as of October 1st, he has a new book out, A Thrilling Year in Short. And I want to welcome Scott M. Skikes to Chatting with Betsy. Welcome, Scott.
Well, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to have you with me today.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
So your Eyes of Blue is a part of your science fiction adventure series. Can you tell us how you came actually to be a writer? Because from what I read, you originally weren't a writer. And I always admire writers, Scott, because I have difficulty writing a paragraph. So I really appreciate writers now, since I've been doing this show, what goes into a book. And whether it's science fiction or it's historical, nonfiction, there's still a lot of research that goes into it. And I just want to thank you for doing your part in writing books for young people.
Yeah, no problem. Definitely. I speak to a lot of writers and, at conventions and everything, and a lot of them wanted to be a writer since high school or since they were a kid. And that was never in my purview. But it was, I don't know, just kind of got this one line, the very first line of Eyes of Blue, running, always with the running. For some reason, just got kind of stuck in my head. And back then, Walking Dead was new. And my kids and I would sit around and talk about how the Walking Dead and the zombies in there weren't really, I know it's not supposed to be realistic, but weren't really realistic. Like somebody that just turned and you can shove a pencil through their skull doesn't quite work. So we just kind of talking about that. And with all of that coming through and everything, I just kind of started writing a little bit. I was stuck at work and, got to put the hours in, but didn't have a whole lot going on. So I was just kind of sitting there and, I'd write a little bit here or there. And it took me about 5 years to write Eyes of Blue.
Wow.
And it was about 3 years in before I realized it was actually going to be like a book, and I had like enough to make it a true novel. So then it was, trying to learn how to make a book. It's not just putting words on paper. It's all the editing and, like you say, all the research that goes into it, and then finding, making a cover. And so then I had to start researching just how to create a book. So it was definitely a different path that I never thought I would take. And then here I am now, 7 books in.
Wow. Now, when you wrote your first book, Eyes of Blue, what number is that in the series?
Eyes of Blue is the first book. Yeah, it's the first book I wrote. First book. Yep, first book in the series. Yep.
Okay, so that's your first book in the series. So did you know after you wrote Eyes of Blue, you wanted to continue the series?
Yes, even as I was writing it, because in the book, the Eyes of Blue is about Ava. She's a 17-year-old girl on her own, kind of lost her family during the fall, and it's just her surviving and having to move from where she was safe into areas that she's not safe and trying to find other people and stuff. But she references her family during it all. And so I really kind of wanted to show her brother's side of things. So it was planning on being just like a novella, but his story ended up taking on a whole thing and becoming a whole book. And then with those two, they kind of end at the same point. So then I had to write a third one to kind of finish the story out. So
that's it's amazing.
Yeah, it kind of took on a life of its own. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and how is your? I love asking writers this because each writer tells me something different. So I like to pick everyone's brain. Now, what is your writing creative process like? Do you have the characters and dialogue already in your head, or do you just get it as you go along with writing the story?
So I don't do an outline or anything. I do have like a couple points in the story that I would like to hit, of where they got to be here, they got to be here, they got to be here. But I always refer to mine as I look into their world, like I open the door. And sometimes I don't have a lot of energy, and I just kind of look at and just kind of peek in, and I can write a little bit. And then other times, like I can just open the door fully, and just the whole story just kind of hits me, and I just sit there and write for hours. So it's just I'm just kind of seeing it as it happens. A lot of times what happens surprises me.
I just find it incredible. I have to admit, Scott, I envy all your every writer's talent. I really do. It gives you a whole new appreciation. Gave me a whole new appreciation when I pick up a book to read it. It's like, cause I think, what went into this book? What did this writer? How many years did it take for them to write this book? I mean, you said it took 5 years. I've heard people taking 10, 20 years to write a book because of all the research. And how about the other books in this series? Were they less time to write?
Yeah, actually a lot less time. So I finished Eyes of Blue and published it in June of 2022. And then I published A Dim Blue, the second book, in May of 23. And then I just finished Loss of Blue. It dropped June of this year. So they're about a year in between them now. It takes me about 6 months to actually do the writing. And then, of course, you got all the editing and everything else you got to do that takes forever. But, yeah, now that I kind of know what I'm doing and know that is what I'm doing, that I sit down with the idea to write a book, I plan my time a little bit better. I write quite a bit more now than I used to, and a lot more direction in the writing, so it's causing everything to move faster.
What's your inspiration? How did you come up with the character of Ava?
Well, so the character of Ava is based on my daughter. I have a 22-year-old daughter, so I kind of based her personality a little bit on my daughter. So I kind of made it a little easier, like her speech patterns, her mannerisms a little bit. Same with Nephew. He's kind of based on my son, but he's more of a mixture of kind of my son and me when I was that age. And then to kind of, I take a lot of inspiration from people around me. I've always been a people watcher, so just kind of watch people's mannerisms and speech patterns and kind of how people interact with each other, and I kind of take that into my characters.
What did your family think of writing a series based on their personality?
My son loves it. My son and I, he's kind of a budding author too. He's more of a graphic designer, so he does a lot of his stuff in art. My wife too, but my son actually did the covers for the books for those three.
Wow.
So yeah, it's they've read it and they look through and they like, that's not really me, or that's not, they just know that it was based on it. Just gave me the inspiration.
What about the people that you work with on your job? Have they read your book? What do they think?
I don't think anybody at my job has read my book. A couple of them know that I'm an author, but I kind of work a weird job because I work in construction, but I work.
Okay.
So
that explains
it. I don't really work with people as much. I'm kind of on my own most of the time. So we're not like sitting in an office talking about it, or or working on a job site where there's like 10 of us and we talk all day. Like we really barely interact with each other too much. We're all kind of in our own communities, but a lot of my coworkers aren't readers either. Like I've talked to a couple of them, and they're like, "Yeah, that's really cool. You're an author, but I don't read." So.
And I love to read.
Yeah, so do I. I have read my whole life. But a couple of my friends from like older jobs that I've had, previous jobs, have read my books and given me pretty good feedback on them. So that's nice.
Being the nosy, curious person that I am, if I worked with someone who wrote a book, I would want to read it because I would want to see what they wrote, and encourage them. Like, oh wow, this is really cool.
Yeah, it also kind of gives you a little more insight to the person. Like, you're really looking at their inner thoughts with that stuff. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, I just love to read. I always did since I was a youngster. Except the difference now is because I'm older, I can't read as much as I used to at a clip. But I love to read. I mean, it takes you into a whole different world, different worlds, and you learn so much from each book that you read. This book is for young adults. What would the age group be, Scott?
I would say these are like 15 and up. I mean, there's nothing in the books that would be adult rated or anything like that. I would say 15 and up more for comprehension of the words and the storyline.
My son used to like when I'm trying to think, it's so long ago. I guess it was in middle school, and he loved this author. I think it was Matt Christopher. There's a lot of sporting books, and he loved those. That's why I asked him. When I was younger, you're going way back. I used to save up my money and buy the Bobbsey twin mystery books.
Okay.
Loved the Bobbsey twins. It was a family, and they would solve a mystery. And I would save up my money and go to the drugstore, which sold them, and buy that book. But, we used to have book fairs when I was younger in the school.
Yep.
And buy the books. And where are your books sold, Scott?
So I'm on Amazon, of course, but I also sell through Ingram. So you can get them on Walmart, Target, thrift books, pretty much anywhere that carries Ingram, which is a huge distributor. You can get my books through there.
That's good to know, because this is heard all over, global. That's why I asked. Do you have another book with Ava in mind, or are you done with the series and going to start another series of a different character?
So right now I'm working on a different book completely, but this winter I will work on. There is a fourth book to the Blue series, but that one's going to follow Matthew again. So the third book so they're all written first person. So the third book is from Ava's perspective again, Lost of Blue. And then the fourth book will be back from Matthew's perspective. And then that'll finish that main series. I don't have any more books in mind with Ava. I do have some short stories, and I'm probably going to put a short story book together It's like called Lives in Blue, which are going to talk about other stories from Matthew's perspective in the world. So stuff that didn't, like, the books didn't go over, but kind of just world building of how the fall and this apocalypse affected the everyday person, that, you know, and different stages of the fall.
That's incredible. I can't help but just admire, you know, when people write a book and then some books become a series, and maybe the writer didn't intend that when they first started writing their first book, but then it just, you know, became a series of books, which I find fascinating, because to me it's just thinking of the material. Like, I would think to myself, oh, you know, what kind of storyline, you know, what kind of material is you're going to have for the next one. So the end of your books, or do you leave a cliffhanger for your reader to want to read your future books?
Yeah, so 1 and 2 actually have the same exact cliffhanger. They end in the same exact spot. And then the third one, I didn't see it as a cliffhanger, but my wife and one of my good friends, they're like, well, it kind of ends that part of the story, but now you need what happens next. I'm like, so that's kind of where the fourth book, I never planned on a fourth book for it, but, well, I got kind of talked into that one.
That's incredible. So you didn't set out to be a writer, Scott. Did you go to classes, workshops for writing, or did it just come natural?
It just kind of came natural, but when I was in college, I had to take a bunch of different writing courses. My associate's degree was in criminal justice. So, I mean, it was like report writing and stuff like that, but it's still good sentence structure and all of that, and the grammar and English part of it. And then when I did my bachelor's degree, it was in business, and I took like some other writing courses I had to take. And again, they weren't really like book writing or, you know, fiction writing, but they were more about sentence structure, how to edit, how to look at the sentences and stuff. So I get a lot of, at least the structure of the writing from a lot of those classes. And then it's just a matter of telling the story other than that.
I just think it's incredible. It's like sometimes I know what I want to write, but it gets lost between my head and my hands. I don't know how to write it down, I guess, properly. Maybe I should take a creative writing course. Just to, you know, write down what I want to say. Of course, you know, a lot of people now use AI to help them with grammar and, you know, the proper endings, you know, and pronouns and where to leave a, you know, the period, a comma, you know, whatever. Right. But to me, that's a lot of work. to write it, you know, submit it to AI, and then writing it all over again. It's too much for me.
I actually end up writing my stories twice, because my first draft is just getting the idea out there. It's not always a really flushed and flourished idea. Like, it's just, these are the events that happened, and I kind of write it through there. And then when I go back and edit, my first edit is just basically rewriting the story as I'm reading it myself and adding embellishments and go, oh, you know, I can add this, and oh, this needs to happen, and kind of, you know, once I have the story kind of fully flushed out. So I kind of write each story twice for the,
wow.
Just like that, just putting words on paper at first, like just getting it down to get it out of my head. Sometimes the ideas just flow too fast, and there's too much going on.
Now, when you wrote your first book, how did you go about, because I find this interesting too, picking out an editor, picking out a publisher, or if you want to self-publish? How do you decide?
I knew from the beginning I was going to self-publish, just because I wasn't sure, like, how good it was. It was more just I'd like to have a copy of it myself. So I kind of knew I was going to self-publish through Amazon, just because it's easy, it's free. I mean, you only got to pay a couple bucks for the book. And I actually get really lucky because my wife is my editor. So she.
Oh, that's good. Save some money.
She goes through, and I mean, it's like anything else. She loves telling me how to do things, and now she just has another way to do it. But she took a lot of creative writing courses, and she reads a ton. So she's really good with sentence structure and what sounds good, what doesn't, stuff like that. So I'm sure there's a few editing things in my books that a real, like, paid everyday editor would catch, but they're pretty good, and not too many people find mistakes in them. So we're doing pretty good with it.
I think it's interesting because a lot of people aren't aware of, you write a book and you need an editor, and what does the editor do? How do you go about finding one? And if you want to publish versus self-publishing. These are interesting things to know because a lot of times people wonder, oh, well, you know what? I'd like to write a book, but, it's I imagine it's an expense. If you have to pay for an editor, have to pay for a publisher, right? And then marketing.
A lot of editors don't proofread. So a lot of people think that editors are proofreaders, and they're actually two different things. So an editor is literally just going to go through and go, no, you should have a comma here and a period here. This word doesn't work. But then you have proofreaders that say, okay, your story drags here. You need to kind of change this. Everybody kind of puts that under the head of an editor. But a lot of editors will proofread, but it costs you more to have them do both. Because I've definitely looked into it. So there's
you just informed me about something. I was under the impression that an editor does proofread, but that's an extra job for them to do. So if they do that, they charge more. Well, that would make sense.
Yep. And then, I mean, a true traditional publisher, you should, like, if you get in with a true traditional publisher like Tor or Random House, you don't actually pay the publishers. They pay you, and they pay for the editing and do all that. So, do the covers. But there's a lot of hybrid publishers out there now. So they will help you find an editor and all that, but you have to pay, so much up front for them to take the risk. But then, of course, if you self-publish, you have to do it all by yourself, pay for it all by yourself.
Yeah, it's an expense. A lot of people don't realize that because, they see these famous writers that are making big money, and I think maybe a lot of people are under the false impression, oh, I could write a book and make tons of money, and it doesn't always happen that way. It takes a lot of your own money to get to that place. And also, if you hire a publicist versus, say, a PR company, I know that is expensive.
Marketing in general is expensive and time-consuming. But even nowadays, even with traditional publishers, like even if you did like Random House or Tor, you have to do a lot of your own marketing. It's just kind of the way of the world now with social media and everything. You have to keep your own social media presence. They don't really do it for you. So a lot of the marketing is still on you, even with the big publishers. So and that's the part of the job I hate. I hate marketing.
Yeah. That's I interviewed one person that was her first book, and she said, "Oh, Betsy, I don't know, so many books, just even being on your show." And well, I'm from New Jersey, so I'm very blunt. And I told her, I said, "Listen, I don't guarantee, book sales. You have to hustle your book. And that's what it comes down to. And people don't realize that. If you have a business, a book, you have to be out there promoting it.
Yep. That's
Via social media. Otherwise, it's just going to sit there. And a lot of people don't realize that. They want to make the money, Scott, but they don't want to put forth the effort that it takes to get there.
Yeah, they think that I wrote a good book and it's going to sell itself, but there's millions of books out there that you have to bring your book to the customer's eye.
Yes, and definitely. And book covers are I think book covers are very important to catch that the eye of someone, whether they're going on a book site or a store, or even going into, say, one of those big box stores. We kind of gravitate to what appeals to us visually.
Yep. But you got to have a really nice cover that grabs their ideas. So you grabs them just to pick it up, and then you have to have a really good blurb to catch their attention. And that's the two biggest things that you have to get people to buy your book. Then your writing, and then everything inside of it matters. Nothing matters until then. Yes.
That's why sometimes I discuss book covers, because some of the book covers are just very eye-catching and makes you want to pick up your book. And if I remember, forgive my memory, I did go on Amazon and looked at your books. I did. And I thought that your book covers were very eye-catching. I was like, well, this really looks cool. It would want to make me pick it up and read it.
Yeah, it's a little different. They're not the realistic images that a lot of people are using nowadays. But my son went with more of a almost like cartoony sketch book. But it kind of fits the books because it's supposed to be almost like a diary. They're writing these books to help people out that maybe are trying to survive after they are. So it's almost like they kind of drew it themselves. It's kind of that hand-drawn look. It's kind of what we were going for.
Well, I think that go with what, works. And I think sometimes you just have to go to intuition, right, of what you feel is right for your book. And probably as far as writing your book, too, do you lean on your intuition of, I really want these characters to be like this. I want the book cover to look like this, even if someone disagrees with you?
Yeah. I mean, I take constructive criticism, especially from my wife and my son. We talk about the books quite often when I'm writing them, and I bounce story ideas off of them. And sometimes they come up with really good ideas, or kind of pounce on one of mine, being like, I don't really like that, but it's always good to get somebody else's opinion. But in the end, if I really feel like something needs to be in there, I do it anyway, because in the end it's my book. But that's part of the reason why I like self-publishing is I don't have anybody telling me what I can do. I write the story that I want to write, and not have somebody tell me that, well, this isn't quite as marketable as it could be, or this or that. Because in the end, I'm not really trying to make a living off of my books. I never want to be like a full-time author, because then it becomes a job. So I just do it for fun and just put it out there for other people that might enjoy it.
Well, that's good, because a lot of people, I think they get disappointed because they go into writing a book thinking they're going to make this ton of money, and then they get disappointed because they didn't, and maybe they even lost money in writing their book and getting it, out there to the market. Because I can imagine, you go to any big box store, there's thousands of books in there. That's a very competitive market, I would think. Very competitive. Yep.
And then I also know, like, my genre is not the most popular genre. Like, if you're writing romance novels, you're probably going to make a little bit more money. They're very popular, and they sell quite a bit. But post-apocalyptic books, that's a smaller genre. It's a smaller fan base. So you're not going to sell as many books just because of the genre that I write in.
Well, I think that's a great hobby that you have, Scott. I mean, you just don't know. You know, you don't know where it can take you in the future. Tell us about your new book, A Thrilling Year in Short, that just came out this month.
A Thrilling Year in Short. It's a collection of short stories. They range from 10-minute reads to 20-minute reads, 2,000 to 5,000 words. They're all horror stories, but not like slasher horrors. They're more of a thriller type, where it kind of messes with you mentally, like that could happen or this or, and each story is a little different. A couple of them tie in together, but the main tie-in is that each story goes with 1 month of the calendar year. So you start in January and it's New Year's Eve, and then you work your way through the year. There is one bonus story at the end. There's 2 stories for December because they tie right into each other. But it also made it 13 stories. So when you're writing horror, using number 13 is always good.
13.
Yeah, I mean, it ranges from angels to demons to werewolves to psychopaths. Every story is just a little different.
Wow, that sounds interesting to me.
Yeah.
That sounds interesting. And I have to ask you about this book that you wrote back October 2023, Message on the Wind, that you was inspired by you and your nephew cleaning up after a tornado. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah, that one was fun to conceptualize. We had a small tornado here in Delaware, and it happened to hit my nephew's parents' house, and we were out there cleaning up, and I was getting ready to have back surgery, so I really couldn't do a whole lot. So him and I were just kind of cleaning up branches. Well, he has the craziest imagination. He was 11 at the time, 12, and we're just talking about where tornadoes come from. And of course, my daughter at the time was living in Oklahoma, and Oklahoma has a lot of tornadoes. We all know about Tornado Alley.
Yeah.
And so we got talking about that, and he's like, well, all the tornadoes start in Oklahoma, and they just send them out, and they just hit other places. So we just kind of were sitting there all day just talking about this. So I kind of came home and wrote some notes, and then just kind of created the story. I had to create some more substance to the story than what we were talking about. But, I had him read through and edit, and it was really cool with him to put the story together.
Well, that sounds interesting. Now, the tornado that hit in Delaware, was that part of a tropical storm?
No, it was just a nor'easter came through, and we just had the right winds, I guess. We get them every now and then. About one or two a year will hit us now.
Wow.
Not real regular, but we get them every now and then. When you cut down all the trees to make for new houses, it creates more area for the tornadoes to form.
Well, you know what? I did not know that. So thank you for bringing that out.
Yeah, tornadoes can't form over trees because the winds can't get moving right. So the more trees you cut down, the more fields and more housing developments, the more they can form.
Well, you know what, Scott, that makes sense because I live in New Jersey, and I grew up in New Jersey. I lived in New Jersey most of my life except for 3 years, and we never had tornado warnings. We never had tornadoes until the past couple of years. I'd say since Ida. In Ida, there was tornadoes in New Jersey. And now that you mentioned about lack of trees, it seems like they're always cutting down trees and putting up housing or a mall or something here in New Jersey.
Yep.
So that does make sense.
Mm-hmm.
That makes a lot of sense. Wow. See, folks, I learn from every guest. Even if it's something as simple as, the more trees you have, it the tornado can't cause as much damage. See, I never knew that before. So I know I learned something new today from Scott. Is there anything else you'd like to tell the audience, Scott, about your books, your writings? How can they get in touch with you, connect with you?
So I have on all of my books, there's a QR code for my link tree. Everything is just SM Sykes author. My social medias, my link tree, any search for that, all my stuff should come up. Like I said, my books are pretty much everywhere when I put them on with Ingram, worldwide distribution, and so it's kind of cool. Every now and then I'll just go on and search for one of my books and just see how many websites it comes up on. So
that's cool to do, isn't it? You know,
yeah.
Or to Google yourself.
Yeah.
I do that myself.
Yep.
I do, folks. That's funny, because sometimes I'll Google myself and I'm like, oh wow, there's a lot of stuff about me.
Yeah, sometimes you find people that have mentioned you that you didn't see, and yeah, that's kind of. I try to do that, especially in social media, so I can respond to if people mention me or mention my work or something. I try to be active and get back to them, or thank them for mentioning me or whatever. Trying to keep that good relationship with people. So it's good to do every now and then.
Do you have a Facebook author page?
I do.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yep. I'm on Facebook,
I'll have to look you
Instagram, and TikTok. I do all three of those. I don't really do X too much.
I don't have X. I don't even have TikTok. I barely can manage Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and I cannot figure out Instagram for the life of me. I cannot figure out how that works. So,
well, my Instagram posts are pretty much just my TikTok posts that I just post over there.
Oh,
they're all pretty much
you know
the same
what?
posts.
I'm going to have to connect with you. I'm going to connect with you on Facebook and Instagram, but the shows that I do, Passion World Talk Radio, they post them out, all over on different platforms, but I also post my shows on LinkedIn and Facebook. Sometimes they make it to Instagram, sometimes they don't. I did want my own separate account, Chatting with Betsy, on Instagram, but I could not figure out how to do that. So, that's what I'm saying, folks. I'm a middle-aged lady here. I can't figure these things out. But I want to thank you for coming on today, and I wish you best of luck. And your other books that we just mentioned, are they also on your Amazon?
Yep. Yeah. Everything I do goes out the same way. Even some of my novellas that I just kind of play with, I put them out there too because somebody's gonna like them. Like I was surprised. I was at a book fair this weekend, and one of mine it's called "It's My Body, I'll Haunt If I Want to." It's just kind of a zombie comedy. It's just a little novella, just something fun to get my mind off the main story for a little while. And I sold like 4 copies of it at the fair. Like people just love the idea of it. So I put everything out there. So they're all on Amazon. My smaller books aren't on Ingram, but everything is on Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
Oh, okay. All right. I think I was looking for you in Barnes and Noble, but maybe I'm not looking in the right spot.
Barnes and Noble is hard. Their algorithm is really hard to find things on, which is why I don't put a whole lot of effort behind theirs. I'm not sure what it is with the algorithm, but like when you type in a keyword, it doesn't look for the keyword. It looks for that keyword in the title. So you almost have to know the title of the book to look at it in Barnes and Noble. So it's a little more difficult than Amazon.
I go into Barnes and Noble a lot, just about every weekend before we go to the movie. And I only found, out of all the people that I have interviewed, and I interviewed, I don't even know how many authors by this time, because I've been doing this for 5 years, I only found one author that I interviewed, their book.
No, yeah, like you said, it's difficult.
Just one. So, folks, if you go into the big box stores and they don't have a book, they could order for you. If it's in their warehouse system, they can order it for you. So you could do that, or go on Amazon, and I would highly recommend that. Well, thank you, Scott, for coming on today. You're welcome, and a pleasure. So, folks, you heard Scott Skykes, but on his book, it's S.M. Skykes, S-K-Y-E-S. Definitely go on the Amazon page, where you can see all of Scott's books, and highly recommend reading them. And I was going to ask you about if you go to book fairs and these little, what do you call cons?
Yep, I love Comic-Cons. That's
yeah.
I've kind of backed off on my online marketing, and I'm kind of doing more of that homegrown marketing, going to the fairs and the conventions. Actually, in October, like every weekend, I have a different fair or convention. So
that's
I've been doing a lot, trying to. I feel like I get my books out there more when the people can approach me than online, like when there's so many others. So
that's good. Yeah, that's a good way, because that's, nothing travels faster than word of mouth, right?
Exactly.
Somebody meets you at a fair, and they go, oh, hey, I met this really cool guy, Scott M. Skykes, and he wrote this, a great book, check him out. And you'd be surprised at how fast word of mouth could travel like that. I mean, that's really one of the best advertisements, is someone recommending your book to someone else, or saying, hey, go to this fair. Skykes is going to be at this fair. I met him. He's a really cool guy. And, people will start coming. That's really cool. I'm very happy for you. Excuse me. Well, it was nice talking to you, Scott, and best wishes on all your books. Folks, check out Scott Skykes, and all the information about Scott will be in the blog that Jeannie White, who's the station manager, writes, and Jeannie produces the show. So I always thank Jeannie for what she does. And thank you to Lillian Caldwell, CEO of Pastoral Talk Radio Network, who makes this all possible. And thank you all for listening, subscribing. If you don't already subscribe to Chatting with Betsy, it is for free on Spotify, Spreaker, iHeart, Amazon Music, just to name a few. And tell your friends about the show. I have many different types of guests from all walks of life, and I have something for everyone, and everyone can benefit from listening to my show. I know I benefit from listening to all my guests. I learn from every guest. I'm very grateful to be doing what I do, and I just love it. So thank you all for subscribing. And as I always say at the end of my show, before I say what I always say, if you want, you can follow me on Facebook, Betsy E. Wurzel, W-U-R-Z-E-L. And as I always say at the end of my show, in a world where you can be anything, please be kind and shine your light bright, because we need it now more than ever before. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Pastoral Talk Radio Network, a subsidiary of Global Media Network, LLC. Have a good day, everyone. Bye-bye now.